I've been looking for the next sweet treat to base a character off of, when finally it hit me, a cupcake. A cupcake is a treat that's pretty well known, well, at least I think in America it is, and has endless possibilities. As you can see, I went ahead and sketched out both of them, but what I did was I sketched out the cupcake first, and then based off of the cupcake characteristics, I went ahead and made the character. What I wanted to do this time, and make sure I do it, was use colored line art for when I color in the sweet, and the reason why, so when I am coloring in with the markers later on, it does look nice and soft, compared to a black outline, which might make it look a little bit more harsh. The thing about cupcakes is that the possibilities are literally endless, because it is a cake, and there are a lot of different combinations of cakes and frostings and toppings and all that stuff, except now it's just in the cup form, right? So I decided to do what I was feeling like eating in that moment, and I went with a vanilla cupcake with vanilla frosting and with specifically blue sprinkles. I was just feeling like blue, and since I had the blue sprinkles, I also wanted the liner to kind of match to a degree, right? So I did blue wrapping paper. I don't know if it's paper, liner, cover. There's like so many different words, and I literally don't know. But what I did know is that I wanted it to be blue wrapping paper with white lines. Once I put together all of the elements of the cupcake, I decided to separate them on the bottom, which you see right here, and then make sure I color each part individually, so when I make the character, the colors are the same and everything looks coherent with each other, you get me? Once I finished coloring the individual parts, I went ahead and put them together on the cupcake. I do want to say that my favorite part of coloring the individual parts was the cake itself, and I think that was mostly because, you know when you peel back the liner on a cupcake, you see the little ridges because of the way it baked and kind of indented in and stuff? Sometimes it'll create these really nice, like, not burned, but like really cooked through parts, right? So like some will be darker, some will be lighter. So it gave me a real good chance to like actually shade it out. But the frosting covered the cupcake, so I was like, fuck, I don't get to draw the cake, so I'll just leave it on the bottom. I did forget to make a little swatch of the frosting, but I ended up going with like this really light blue color instead of gray because I didn't want the frosting to look nasty or mushy, you know what I'm saying? The two things that I did want to note for the cupcake is that they were customizable and they had a liner and a cover. Once I had finished coloring in everything and I was happy with how it looked, I went ahead and sketched out my character, or at least I had the sketch beforehand, and then decided to line and color him afterwards. For the most part, when I was drawing this character, it went by pretty smoothly, except for his right eye. In fact, I erased so many times that I fucked up the paper, so it almost ripped it up, and I was like, okay, we can't just keep doing this, because I would just go back and forth with how I didn't like the way it looked. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna have to do the hair covering the eye thing, but I'm kind of glad I did that, because remember how I stated earlier how the frosting covered the cupcake? It kind of made sense to go with the design where the frosting, or his hair, would cover the cake, which would be his face, right? For the design that I ended up using on this character, I decided to give him like a really dapper suit with like pinstripes on them, and made it look like he was kind of like at a party and he's just, you know, chilling, hanging out. And I thought that that made sense because of the sole factor of the liner on the cupcake that I drew had those white stripes, and when I think of a cupcake and how it's like dressed up because of the liner, it made sense to me that I would make a suit to kind of like bring that character forth, you know what I'm saying? For the line art itself, I ended up going with a black line art just because I didn't want a softer look on the character. This time, I know last time in my previous sweets video, I made a softer line art on the character, and I thought that that made sense. But for this, I really wanted to use the black line art because I thought it would help stand out a lot better, especially because the blues that I'm going to be using for his suit are pretty dark, so I think a black line art would really help that stand out. I also made that black line art thicker in some areas and thinner in others, but I kind of wished I would have done that at the end of the drawing, just for the sole fact that sometimes the way this paper picks up pen ink with marker ink can be like kind of risky when you're coloring, you know, because it'll end up picking up the color and then making the drawing look more muddy or dark or like have a grayish undertone, which kind of like, I don't want that because then the character looks lifeless and then the coloring doesn't look good, right? So as a result, I just had to make sure I was careful when I was coloring him in. I think everybody has something different they like to do first whenever they start coloring. I usually like to start off with the skin, and then I go on from whatever I want to. From there, it's usually the skin, and then the hair, and then the body, just because I feel like if the skin and the hair I'm happy with, then the rest of the body, if I needed to change in accordance with the skin and the hair, I could do that. In this case, I wouldn't change anything because I'm going with a specific design, but I always like to think that I have the free reign to do that if needed. Also, I just want to state that I don't know if I've ever drawn a suit before, and if I have, it's probably only been like once or twice, maybe 3 times, so I definitely had to look up some references on how different suits look like, but in specific, I don't know if a pinstripe suit would look different than a regular suit, so I went ahead and of course typed in pinstripe suit, and I found a reference, which I'll put on the screen if I can find it. I hope I can find it. And I was like, damn, that looks clean. That shit look really clean. So I was like, I'm going to kind of take some elements like the big, what are they called? Lapels? Hold on, let me see if it's called lapels. I was right, these are lapels, but in specific, the ones that these are called peaked lapels because they have like the pointiness to them. So I was like, I really want to use that in the design. And I was like looking at the reference, and I was like, I could do the polka dots for like the confetti on the shirt, but then I was like, I don't know if that kind of meshes well if I'm gonna be doing it. So I was like, let's play it safe and not add that in. Instead, we took the confetti. I keep saying we like it's me and someone else when I'm drawing. I always refer to myself as we. It's like a bad habit I've had since I was a kid. I think it's because English is not my first language, so that's there. I ended up using the confetti colors as like the buttons on the suit and the dress shirt, which I felt like made much more sense, and I actually like how it came through with the design, because you do have still the blue element, but it's a nice light blue element to kind of break away from all the dark that's going on in the suit. I did end up leaving the, like, what is it called? I just said the name. In my head, the name in Arabic came up first. It's called a camisa. It's, the dress shirt. Okay. When I left the dress shirt white, but sometimes I'll switch between gray for shading or, like, a light purple for shading. So this way, it looks like it's still a white shirt, but it's not, like, just empty space. You get me? You can't just leave an empty space there to make it look like it's a white thing. It'll just kind of look flat and weird, and then take it out of the drawing, you know, because everything else is shaded, so why would you leave that one space not shaded just because it's absent of color? The ribbons, I ended up doing like a medium blue tone to kind of fit along with the page, and I made sure to use a white gel pen to kind of give it shininess in some areas. Now for the pinstripe part of the suit, I was originally gonna leave white lines, like, as a pattern and then color around them, but then I told myself that's like way too much of a headache, especially because of how tight the pinstripe pattern can be. So I told myself, okay, we'll just color in the entire suit first, and then we'll come in after with a white gel pen to give it the pinstripe look, and I'm so happy I did that because it looks so much cooler that way, and I really like how I had to follow the lines of shading along with the body to look like the pinstripe is stretching out in some areas and is really thinner in other areas. So as a result, I was really happy with how this character came out, and I feel like he definitely matched the vibe of the cupcake that I did, and I think this is basically one of my favorite spreads in my sketchbook. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember I love you. Bye!